Number 12, we have a public hearing on to consider a form-based code for the Hamlet of Brewerton. Proof of publication from Richard Keene and Eagle newspapers, that notification was to be published, and proof of posting with town clerk Tracy M. Cosmo, the notice was posted on the bulletin board at the proper time. We have Mr. Paul Fritz here from EDR, and he's going to give us a little presentation.
Hey, related to the topic tonight, I have a handout I've given the board. I brought about 35 other copies, if I brought enough. If not, this copy will be available on the town's website in the very near future. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Again, my name is Paul Fritz. I work for EDR, which is a land planning design firm in Syracuse. And I've been working with the town of Cicero on their Hamlet revitalization plan since really 2006. That's this plan that was adopted by the town in October of last year. And what I want to do tonight is just make a quick presentation, as brief as I can, on a zoning code, which is difficult to be brief on. But what I'd like to get across tonight is just the intent of what this code is and what it's all about, because it's very clearly or very closely tied to the revitalization plan that I just mentioned. Two things. One, really before I start, I also want to make it clear, and Heather, you can correct me if I'm wrong, tonight is really a time to introduce the zoning code. It's been out there on the town's website for a while, almost probably close to a month, at least a couple weeks. But tonight, the board, I believe, is not going to vote on this. Public hearing is going to be extended until...
Correct, because the county planning board hasn't done their referral yet, so you'll probably have to defer it to your next meeting.
And we will allow comments, written comments, spoken comments, obviously tonight, but written comments can be to me directly or Tracy or the board up until the end of the month, June 30th, which I believe is a Tuesday. That would give us time to make some revisions if we have to before the next town board meeting. The second thing is, it would be remiss if I did not give some kind of background to the zoning code. I know I did this a little bit in October, but I think it deserves some sort of sequence to this project so everybody understands how we got to where we are today. So I've really broken this presentation up into two parts. The first part is brief. The first part is about the strategic revitalization plan and what came out of it. It's important to remember that our plan looked at the Hamlet of Brewerton from the river down to Orangeport Road, basically, 81 on the east and the town of Clay on the west. And the purpose of our plan was, if you're familiar with it, was to create a vision, to guide future projects, which I'll talk about in a second, assist in grants, which the plan already has done for the town, and also to use as a tool for developers interested in coming to the Hamlet of Brewerton. If you remember or participated in the project, there were some key things that were pulled out from the very beginning from public participation and from input from the town board and other resources. And that was the interest of improving the appearance of the hamlet, improving the safety, and improving the identity. Three things I want to make sure you understand because it really ties to what we've done with the zoning for the Hamlet of Brewerton. The other things that were priorities out of the plan were basically Bartell Road and Route 11. Those were the key areas, if you look on the aerial here, that were identified as key target areas or focus areas, if you will. Having known that, again, from public participation and input from the town board, we identified as consultants three major planning principles that were important to revitalizing the hamlet, and also were a lead into future projects. And that's making sure there's a distinct identity in the hamlet, makes it a more marketable place. Organizing the physical elements, that's your public grounds, your streetscape, down from your curbing to your sidewalks, your street trees, etc. And then making sure that there's a sense of comfort and convenience for pedestrians, bicyclists, and any type of visitor coming to Brewerton. And that can all be done by physical improvements. After we accumulated those planning principles, we did a build-out plan for the hamlet. We really, again, focused on Bartell Road and Route 11. And that's a plan view of our recommendations. It's hard to see, but it's described more clearly in the plan itself. We talked about mixed use, pedestrian amenities, streetscape enhancements. I just talked about opportunities for on-street parking, and then improving off-street parking as well. And then part of the build-out plan was actually try to illustrate that in a graphic form. And it's important to know that we try to respect the past as well, because the past is your resource. We're trying to build on the principles that you had in the hamlet, especially in the downtown core. So what you're seeing here, the top left is in the past. This is your current situation, basically. And then we try to illustrate the design elements that I just talked about: pedestrian enhancements, walkways, identity markers, called banners. We said there should be something custom made for the streetscape. And then we obviously showed improved facade treatments on the buildings. And then we came up with an implementation section. And we basically had 3 major items that were on the list, or the hit list, if you want to call it, that we wanted to accomplish for the hamlet in the near future. And those were design standards. That's a new zoning code. Streetscape improvements, and waterfront improvements. And just so you know, all those are in line. Obviously, the zoning code is ahead of 2 and 3, but all those are going to happen in the near future because there's funding for streetscape improvements and waterfront improvements. All right, this leads into the second part, and why really I'm here tonight is to tell you what the zoning code is about, its components, in its area, and what it will do for the hamlet. Basically, this project started back in March, and if you've been through a zoning project, they take a while, because you need to be careful in what you propose, and they really aren't cookie cutter if you do it right. And what we've tried to do since 2008 is come up with a plan that's very specific to a certain part of the hamlet, which I'll show to you in a second. We had several advisory committees. Actually, in fact, over 10 committee meetings, almost on a monthly basis. It's spread out through this year-long process, essentially. And representatives on our zoning committee were landowners on our project area, town attorney, town planning board chair, and some ZBA representative, and Wayne, I should bring up,
And the engineers.
and engineer, the town engineer. So we had a well-rounded group, I believe, to get where we are tonight. I skipped over. We actually explained a little bit about this form code, if you remember, back when we talked about adopting the plan itself. So that goes back to October. Project area. We initially started on, and again, this is plan view. Here's the river. 81 would be over here. Bartell Road is here. We're basically looking at a tax map